causa de su amor cristiano, se fue a parar a enfermería, sin yo tener seguro en cama, y me inyectaron suero de colores, y me sacaron la radiografía, y me diagnosticaron mal de amores, al ver mi corazón como latía, oye, y me trastearon hasta el alma.
That, my friends, was called a merengue, which was one of the titles for our level of sponsors at the gala. The first one was the Cha-Cha-Cha, which we played last month, but turns out that that was a waste of music there because our Cha-Cha-Cha sponsor backed out. So merengue, type of music that's originated in the Dominican Republic. It's become very popular in Latin America and the United States. Developed in about the middle of the 1800s, and it originally played with some stringed instruments, and they were replaced by an accordion and then trumpets and all the rest of the stuff. But interestingly, up until the 1930s, that music was considered to be immoral, much like the tango in Argentina, by the general population. More descriptive and colorful name of perico ripiao means the ripped parrot in Spanish, was said to have been the name of a brothel in Santiago de Chile and in Santiago de República Dominicana. Well, the music was played, and moralists tried to ban the merengue music and the provocative dance that accompanies it, but they didn't succeed. Oh well. I'll tell you more next week. So, welcome, Rotarians. Meeting number 5,298. And we don't have any May 12th birthdays, but I think you should know that the Cinco de Mayo in 1961 was when Navy Commander Alan Shepard was launched into space aboard the Freedom 7 space capsule from Cape Canaveral in Florida, becoming the first American astronaut to travel in space. David Ginsburg, are you ready to go, pal? I know you're in Richmond, but you've got
I am, sir.
All right, fire away.
Am. All right. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. As many of you know, I am one of the many men and now women who are Eagle Scouts. Alongside what I've learned from my family and faith, no other experience has so guided my conduct and outlook as much as scouting. And with next Thursday's Friends of Scouting Breakfast coming up, I thought it'd be appropriate to share with you a little, well, naughty prayer. It goes like this. Dear God, please untie the knots that are in my mind, my heart, and my life. Remove the have-nots, the can-nots, and the do-nots. Erase the will-nots, may-nots, might-nots that may find a home in my heart. Release me from the could-nots, would-nots, and should-nots that obstruct my life. And most of all, I ask that you remove from my mind, my heart, and my life all of the am-nots that I have allowed to hold me back, especially the thought that I am not good enough. With that, I wish you a wonderful, happy Rotarian Day. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I cannot think of a better inspirational thought, except that Snoopy he's doing the Beagle Scouts. So I thought you'd be interested in that. Thank you very much. Now we've got our world famous Mercury News columnist, an ace mixologist, funky and Lee White committees, and our president-elect, Salvador Pizarro.
Fernando, that list of accomplishments on my part just keeps growing more and more.
Well, I didn't know about your mixology.
Well, now you do. It's a fun part. So lots of good news to talk about this month. The downtown farmers market, which used to be in San Pedro Square, is now moved to the Sofa District on South First Street between San Salvador and William. That opened for the first time last Friday. There was a good crowd, music, food trucks, and that's open every Friday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. through December 17th. There'll be a couple of days off for I think during the holidays and things that they won't be open, but you can usually count on that. And I'll be out there, I think, tomorrow to pick up some fruits, or Friday to pick up some fruits and vegetables. Another big opening was this restaurant Good Spot that I mentioned last month was having its soft opening. It had a big grand opening celebration. a few weeks ago with the lion dancers, firecrackers. You can see Sam Licardo there talking to a lion dancer. The picture in the middle is the ownership team. Concept here is small plates and drinks, and they've got a really nice menu of just a variety of what they're calling upscale street food. So the kind of stuff you'd find on the streets of Los Angeles, San Francisco, and now San Jose. The owner, one of the owners came from Santana Row. He managed some restaurants there. So he's trying to bring that kind of style to downtown San Jose. Any new business is good business, I say. And speaking of good news, you may have seen, we heard last month about the Breeze of Innovation from Steve Borgenhagen and John Ball. The San Jose City Council did unanimously support continuing with this project. They're going to go through an environmental review and other steps before they can groundbreak. You can find out a lot more on their website, urbanconfluencesiliconvalley.org. And for you opera fans, we've got a fun event coming up on the 22nd. It's called Sing for Your Supper. It's their spring fundraiser. And what they're doing is reenacting a 1930s radio show kind of play. If you've ever seen like the 1940s radio hour, it'll be like that with a lot of comedy and some singing. And if you really want to support them, you can do the VIP dinner, which includes a cocktail and a 3-course dinner from Les Papillons for donations of $500 for a 2-person dinner, $1,000 for 4, and $1,500 if you're feeling really generous and have 6 people. And they've got some great auction items there too. And you can go onto their website to sign up for the VIP stuff or to bid on the auction, but you can watch the whole thing for free on YouTube. And I've got a little bit part as a commercial announcer during it, which was a lot of fun to do. This all took place at their big, their rehearsal hall over on Paragon Drive in North San Jose. And a few more little news items. The Tech Interactive has been closed since last March, but it reopens May 29th. Tickets are now available for that. Happy Hollow Park and Zoo welcomed a set of twin lemur pups that were born on April 16th. They don't have names yet. Contest will be held. I think Fernando and Cecily might be good names, but you know, that's just my opinion. And Thursday is National Fruit Cocktail Day. Fernando was talking about some of the history of San Jose earlier. Now this canned delicacy, you know, we claim credit for it. It was invented right here by Herbert Gray of San Jose's Baron Gray Packing Company in 1930. And of course, became famous because of Del Monte. My mom used to work in the Del Monte cannery and made her share of fruit cocktail. So that's something you can celebrate on Thursday with a little fruit cocktail and maybe another cocktail that I might mix up. So that's what I got for you today, Fernando.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, speaking of the San Jose Opera and their Sing for Their Supper, James Williams, one of our Rotarians, is on their board. Well, he's an employee at the opera. He's going to send me a 90-second clip of these Latina composers that are in cooperation and collaboration with the Los Angeles Opera and San Jose Opera. They're collaborating on a co-production of some music that I'm hoping that we can play in lieu of my other Latino music. We can play Latina composers' music. So that should be kind of fun. I'm looking forward to receiving that from James Williams. Next, we've got David Jeffrey Cohen. I say Jeffrey because there's another much older David Cohen who now has to put an E for his middle initial to avoid confusing voters, tax collectors, and creditors. David G. Jeffrey was a chemical engineer at Lamb Research for 25 years or so, and he won election to District Number 4 of our San Jose City Council. So, David Jeffrey, are you available?
Yes, I'm here. Let me share my screen, and thank you for the introduction. I told David E. Cohen that I appreciate all the votes that I've received because people think they're voting for him. But it's been great to get to know him better, especially through Rotary. The banquet last week was great. It was great to be back out in person with people and actually be able to interact face to face. It's been a long time, and I hope we'll be able to do more of that. Look forward to seeing you back in the Summit Center soon. So I want to talk a little bit about District 4 in San Jose. I think it's the most interesting district in the city. We're the northernmost district, sandwiched between Santa Clara and Milpitas. So you can see in this map the part that sticks up in the little region between those two cities. And we're the only part of the city that has coastline. And we also have the East Hills and a lot in between. And so I'm going to just share a little bit about our district. The first part is Alviso in the north. And in Alviso, we have that beautiful coastline, as well as the Don Edwards Wildlife Preserve. It's a great place to go walking and biking, and a beautiful place to spend an afternoon or go for sunset. We also have just opened the new Topgolf facility in Alviso. If you haven't been there yet, it's quite an entertainment venue, and we're hoping that will bring a lot of people into our city. It's employing a lot of people, and also they expect up to 500,000 customers per year to come in and play golf. It's been busy almost nonstop since they opened a couple of weeks ago. And in that part of the district as well, we have the Zanker landfill and the wastewater treatment plant. So we've got a lot of interesting things in the Alviso part of our district. On the southern part, we have Berryessa. Berryessa has the beautiful hills and open space and lots of nice homes. We also have the only BART station in San Jose in Berryessa, right next to the San Jose Flea Market, which is a great destination for that people love to visit. And then we also have Alum Rock Park in the southeastern corner of our district. And we're excited that next year will be the 150th anniversary of Alum Rock Park, and we're going to be setting up some events to celebrate the park next year, and we hope you'll join us. And then in the middle, we have North San Jose. North San Jose is our tech capital in the city. We have the US headquarters for Samsung. We have the Cisco headquarters and campus, and a lot of other tech companies are up there. It's also going to be, already is, and is going to be a large area for a lot of housing units. We have a lot of apartment complexes up there in the River Oaks area now, and we're going to get more built along the First Street corridor. So we spent the first few months in office listening to our constituents and putting together our value statements of how we're going to operate as an office. We put together a list of values about listening to our constituents, to be of service to our constituents, treating the constituents well, believing in integrity and diversity and belonging and inclusion. I think we have possibly the most diverse district in the city of San Jose. I'm not 100% sure, but I know that in our school district, we have 60 languages that are spoken by families, and so it's a pretty amazing place. We put together a purpose to bring people together, focus on building relationships in order to create a cohesive and healthy community in the district, providing a sense of place for our residents, where affordable housing, clean and safe neighborhoods, and economic development will thrive. And we have a mission statement, but I will skip that now so we can talk a little bit about some of the things we're working on in our district. Primarily at first, my goal is to create a premier customer service organization for the residents of District 4 so that when they contact us for the needs of their community, we will be able to we will be responsive, we will track their needs, and we will get them resolved. And we have a great staff of 6 people who are working with our constituents every day. And it's been, that's the number one thing that I think we're going to work on, is making sure that we're working with our residents. We're focused on development, and you might have read the stories about the Berryessa Urban Village and the latest plans there. At the BART station, eventually the flea market will change, but I've been focused from the beginning, making sure that we will continue to have the flea market vendors on site, because I think that the history of that site is really important to replicate and honor. So we announced last week a deal to get what was originally about 3.5 acres, but now has grown to 5, and I'm hoping potentially will grow to even more, so that our vendors can continue to remain on site and we'll continue to have a vibrant urban market in the midst of the urban village. And tonight, the Planning Commission will be discussing that plan and hopefully approving the new zoning. We're also focused on North San Jose, restarting all the housing development, working with the city of Santa Clara to settle past disputes that will allow us to begin building thousands of new housing units in that community and bringing a more vibrant community along with it. We've also, of course, been focused on the health and safety of our residents. We had a fire safety event last weekend, and this weekend we're starting a new program called Safe Neighbor. The police are going to help us certify our community, learning how to protect themselves and others, and get everybody ready to come to the defense of people who feel threatened in our neighborhoods. We've also focused on vaccine clinics. We've worked with Gardner Health and with Northeast Medical Services, two community health centers that are located in District 4. We brought vaccines to Alviso residents in a vaccine clinic. And now we're working to vaccinate high school students in the east side of San Jose through Northeast Medical Service. My other initiative is focusing on the environment, making sure we're doing development in a sustainable way, trying to get help our older buildings get retrofitted to make them more energy efficient, and making sure that we plant trees and have good urban greening. And I appreciate Rotary's effort this year to help fund East Side trees, and that's really important for the future of our community. And then, of course, the other big issue going on is homelessness. There's been a lot of talk on that. We'll be focused on that issue a lot, but I will actually be joining the Homeless Impact Committee tomorrow morning to discuss that topic in more detail, so I won't get into anything more today. And I worked really hard to try to fit this in 7 minutes, and I'm glad that I won't get the hook. So here's the wrap-up slide. You can contact us at District 4 at sanjoseca.gov. Check out our website, join our newsletter list so you can receive communication from our office. And I look forward to working with you more.
Wow, David, you really have a handful there. There was a lot of different aspects to that district of which I was not aware. I mean, the flea market is where I used to go as a kid. It was just like going back into Mexico with all those vendors. And now it's like going into Vietnam, perhaps, and others, because it's really a colorful place, a lot of fun things to do and shop. And I used to go to the Allen Rock Park as a kid to use that slide. It was just a wonderful place for people to go to. So thank you very much. You're the last of our council members to speak, because that ends my civics investment class for our club. We next week have Otto Lee to tell us about the county. So next, let's go over to Sarah Janigan, who joined us in 2014, same year that you did. And she's the Gala co-chair, and she's going to have 3 minutes, and Nancy Williams and Carl Salas will have 4 minutes. They, of course, were the auctioneers. So Sarah, can you take it over?
I'm here. Thank you, President Fernando. What a great time we had at the Fiesta de Gala Rotaria. After months of planning and replanning, it all came together last Wednesday. Over 250 people participated in some way, and many stayed and enjoyed the time together at History Park. And thanks, David, for that shout out. Before showing you a recap of the evening, I'd like to give a few shout outs to people who made things happen. To the Gala Committee, I know I speak for Mauricio and myself. Without our committee teamwork, we could not have pulled this off. And I'd like to recognize the committee members, Connie Alvarez, Brad Benning, Christine Burrows, Ed Correa, Debbie Caminini, Ray Castaneda, John During, Audrey Fox, Cindy Faulkner, Irma Garcia, Corey Lambert, Helen Lambert, Teresa McCarthy, Charlie McCullum, Julia McRae Goldsmith, Steve Prouty, Elaine Sullivan, Brenda Sweeney, Kathleen Thomas, and Nancy Williams. Thank you, everyone. Our sponsors, please thank our sponsors who are listed on the screen. Because of their generosity and continuing support of Rotary, things happened, and for our club and for our community. I thank you, and I hope to see you back next year. To our Rotary staff, the folks at History San Jose, Adolfo Gomez from Mescal Restaurant, and Bert George for the Fiesta beverages. Thank you. And finally, to our entertainers, Mariachi Estrella, Los Lapeños de San Jose, and DJ Santos Lopez. Thank you. COVID times have been hard on artists and entertainers, and we were so fortunate to have been able to work with these very talented performers. Now, thanks to Sean O'Kane for all his video work, he has put together a recap of the Fiesta de Gala Rotaria, which we're going to show, and then it's followed by Nancy, who's going to recap the auction. Thank you, everyone, and now the recap.
Well, salud, as we
Salud.
say, and felicidades and mil gracias. That means thank you 1,000 times. So, salud and provecho, and thank you very much for all of your help. This has been a very difficult year for everyone, but we're getting through it together, right? Salud.
Salud.
Hey, Sean. Hey, babe. How you doing?
Happy Cinco de Mayo.
Hey, happy Cinco de Mayo.
All right.
See you, man. Wow.
Happy Cinco de Mayo. Woo!
Me gusta el olor que tiene en la mañana. Me gusta el primer traguito de café. Sentir cuando el sol se asoma en mi ventana y me llena la mirada de un hermoso amanecer. Me gusta escuchar la paz de las montañas, mirar los colores del atardecer, sentir en mis pies la arena de la playa y lo dulce de la caña cuando beso a mi mujer. Sé que el tiempo lleva prisa a borrarme de la lista, pero yo le digo que ¡ay, qué bonita es esta vida! Aunque a veces duela tanto y a pesar de los pesares, siempre hay alguien que nos quiere, siempre hay alguien que nos cuida. ¡Ay, ay, ay, ay! ¡Qué bonita es esta vida! Y aunque no sea para siempre, si la vivo con mi gente, es bonita hasta la muerte con canciones y tequila. Me gusta escuchar la voz de una guitarra, brindar por aquel amigo que se fue, sentir el abrazo de la mano.
I guess it's me.
Your turn.
Okay. Well, that was fantastic. And I just wanted to thank everybody who came out. I know it was way more than we thought. We had, thought that maybe 20 or 30 people might want to get out of their car and join us. It turned into, way over 200 people, and that's fantastic. So I think we have a slide, but for those of you who didn't tune in on Friday night, you probably don't know that you won a raffle prize. So on the screen are the winners of all of our raffle prizes: Ed Correa, Karen Sununu Towery, Dave Peterson, and Lori Colici. So what's really cool about that is all of those prizes are available, and you will be getting emails real soon as to whether they will be delivered to you or whether you can pick them up at Gordon House. So you may have gotten an email already, but this year's auction software was a little different than in the past, in that you actually have to actively go and pay for it. And I think that Sarah sent out emails yesterday telling people how to do that, but we can't really close out the auction and start sending emails out until everybody's paid. So it's a little bit of a glitch with the system. So we're trying to do that now. Now, if you were not successful at getting an item that you wanted, there might still be a chance. So for example, David Davis was fortunate enough to win the opportunity to have drinks with our next two presidents, Steve Borkenhagen and Sal Pizarro, and congratulations to him. But Steve and Sal, I spoke to both of them this morning, and they are actually willing to do it again. And they're willing to do it as often as they, people want to have drinks with them, because just between you and I think they're both alcoholics. But use your chat box. If you would like to have drinks with Steve and Sal and you did not prevail in that auction, just put a little note in the chat box. Just say, me too, I want to have drinks with Steve and Sal, and we'll follow up with you and negotiate a price for such an opportunity. Also, Lenore Keeve, who was kind enough to donate the ties, Bob Keeve's cherished bow ties. She had a couple people contact her and say, I'd like a tie, but I didn't necessarily like any of the ties that were offered. If you're one of those people, if you're interested in looking at maybe some of the other ties that Bob had, and if you really, really want a tie and you didn't prevail in the auction, again, put a note in the chat box. I'm going to go through and copy all those down and get in contact with you. Just say, yes, I want a tie, or I want to talk about a tie, or I didn't get a tie, or just something with the word tie in it, and that'll be enough. And by the way, Danny, I have your tie, and I'm going to drop it off either later today or tomorrow. And finally, now, Carl was going to join me in this broadcast, and unfortunately he's in the car and won't be able to, so I'm going to do this all by myself. But Sandra Gill was fortunate enough to win the opportunity to go kayaking with Carl Salas, and she paid $350 for that opportunity, which frankly is a bargain. Carl says he's willing to go again and again and again, as many times as people want to go kayaking with him on the Guadalupe River. So again, use the chat box. If you want to go kayaking with Carl on the Guadalupe River and you didn't prevail in that auction, just drop your name in the chat box, and we will be in contact with you to try to make that happen. So we are, I think it's great that these donors are willing to come forward. We are very, very close to meeting our financial goal with the auction, and with these couple more second chance items, I really think we're going to get there. But thank you all very much for supporting the auction. Just to give you an idea, throwing out a quick number, on normal auctions that we have during the event, we typically have 40 to 50 bidders. This year we had 175 active bidders in the auction. So thank you very much. You will be getting an email soon if you won something, telling you how you can pick that up. I know a lot of you have already gone to the Gordon House and gotten your items. Anyway, we're just trying to close out all of the auctions. So if it seems like we've been late in getting you what you need, just hold tight. It's all going to happen in the next day or so. So thank you very much, and turn it back to you, Fernando. Thank you.
Wonderful job, all of you. Now we've got Sarah Janigan, joined us in 2014 in Rotary. She's a nonprofit fundraiser and co-chair of the Gala Committee, who will introduce our speaker, Sarah Janigan. Come on in.
Thank you, President Fernando. Today we are in for a very special treat. Our speaker, Anne Lamont, is an American novelist and nonfiction writer. She's the author of 7 novels and has also written several best-selling books of nonfiction, including the newly released book, Dusk, Night, Dawn, on revival and courage. Her first novel, titled Hard Laughter, was written for her father, writer Kenneth Lamont, when he was diagnosed with brain cancer. Lamont writes and speaks about subjects such as alcoholism, motherhood, and Jesus. She is laugh out loud funny and ruthlessly honest. She writes about what most of us don't want to think about. In all of her novels, Anne talks about loss of loved ones, loss of personal control. She doesn't try to sugarcoat the sadness, frustration, and disappointment, but tells her stories with honesty and compassion. Much of her nonfiction work is autobiographical. She lifts, comforts, and inspires, all the while keeping us laughing. Lamont from Marin County has been honored with a Guggenheim Fellowship, has taught at UC Davis, as well as writing conferences across the country. She has been inducted into the California Hall of Fame. In 1999, Academy Award-winning filmmaker Frida Mock made a documentary on Lamont entitled Bird by Bird with Annie. We are honored to have her with us today. Please join me in welcoming Anne Lamont.
Thank
Want
you.
to unmute Anne? There she is. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome, Anne.
Can you hear me fine now?
Yes.
Yes, we sure can.
Okay, good. Well, I'm going to talk for 15 or 20 minutes and then Suzanne will do a little interview. I used to spend a lot of time in San Jose when I was young because the National Tennis Championship, the Junior Championship is there, and I was a very avid tennis player through my 16th year. So I was in San Jose, and it was really, I mean, this is, let's see, it would have been probably 65. I was 11, and I would have played in the 12 and unders. And I played there for 6 years. The San Jose tournament was a huge deal, and I always housed with people who lived near the racket club. So I always stayed with families in San Jose. And God, I remember when the Taco Bell first went up. It was like reason to live. And it was kind of a podunky city then, you know, it was a little city in the mid 60s. And God, it's just become the center of the universe. But anyway, it's a beautiful place, beautiful people. So thank you. Somebody has been asking on chat when I am teaching another writing workshop, and I'm actually doing one this weekend. There's still time to sign up. It's on Zoom, but just go to bookpassage.com. And if you noodle around, you'll see it there. It's a 3 hours on literally every single thing I know about writing. So here we go. I thought I'll just start off by reading the first page or so of my new book, and then you'll know exactly what it's about and what I've been spending the last couple of years thinking and writing and talking about. So this is the prologue to Dusk Night Dawn. Here we are, older, scared, numb on some days, enraged on others, with even less trust than we had a year ago. The devastating pandemic and the federal government's confused and deadly response was simply the final straw to a few years of crushing developments. A UN report on climate catastrophe was published months before my wedding in 2019, the report of the extinction of 1 million species 3 weeks after. Major buzzkill. Our poor country has been torn asunder. I await the reign of frogs. And I've gotten so much less young. I got Medicare 3 days before I got hitched, which sounds like something an old person might do, which does not describe adorably ageless me. I mostly love being in the third of my life, as it is the easiest that life has ever been, except for, well, the bodily aspects and the dither and fogginess. And I wouldn't go back a year. Well, maybe back 1 year before the 2 UN reports, which that was 2 years ago now, which have changed everything. At our wedding were all the people we love most in the world, gathered in a redwood grove to celebrate the miracle that Neil and I had found each other, needles in haystacks, wrinkly mulish needles, and fallen in love and toughed out some conflicts. We celebrated and overate. While outside the sacred circle, our nation and the world seemed to have reached the point of no return. So we danced. That was glorious, and I hate to be a downer, but now what? Where on earth do we start to get our world and joy and hope and our faith in life itself back? So that's what the book is about. The book before it was on hope. It was called I can't remember almost everything, and thoughts on hope. And so I was touring because 2 years ago, that's what you did. You went around the country touring, and in every place I went, people felt no hope. They just felt sad and defeated and scared and couldn't imagine what the future held for them or for their families or for the nation or for the earth. So I set out to write a book that I hoped would answer where we start and what works, what doesn't. I did what I always did. I thought of what stories and moments of my life and teachers have helped me when I have run out of any more good ideas and I just don't know where to start or what to bother with and what not to bother with. So all of these stories, some of them are very funny, I think. I like to think some of them are sort of bittersweet. There's a best friend with a very sick son. There's a kitten. The funniest piece probably is, no, one of them is about um, a kitten that we got. When my husband asked me to marry him, our cat had run away a few months earlier, and I said, I'll marry you if we can get a new cat. He's violently allergic to cats, but he discovered years ago that if he puts brewer's yeast on kibble, that it greatly reduces his allergy. So we got a kitten, and of course, then our problems really started. And the main thing is, if you have a little cat, they just disappear. You know, they run away. They they disappear. So there's a piece on that. There's a piece about climate change and how angry the young are at us about turning over the world in such disrepair, and so on. So, you know, I've been writing and talking a lot about COVID college and what were the blessings? It's been really hard. I mean, I've been married 2 years. I got married at 65. And one of those years was in quarantine, which I don't remember agreeing to in my vows. But we're still speaking, you know, some days are just too long, but the blessings have been enormous. I think almost all of us discovered wells of compassion inside of us that we hadn't tapped into for a very long time, that we saw on TV, those long, long lines of people outside of waiting in cars outside of food pantries for 2 and 3 hours just to get a sack of food for their kids. And people did what they could. We couldn't go there, but we could send money. I was on days when I really didn't know what to do. I would fill up a sack of food for the nearest pantry, which is in our area is called the Canal District, where where the service people tend to live and where there was a higher incident of COVID. So I'd fill up a sack of stuff from Safeway, canned goods, beans, rice, packaged good, and of course lots of Oreos for communion. And I drop them off kind of anonymously at the local food sanctuary. Our church has a food sanctuary, and so I made sure that I got money to them. Another thing was that because we couldn't travel or go anywhere, we started paying attention to what was right in front of us. Our beloved people, the stuff in our house that we love, like the ceilings, for instance. How great the ceilings are, and the walls. Don't even get me started on the floors, but also the daffodils. And in Marin, at least, we get in the fall, we get golden crowned sparrows who make this beautiful, beautiful bird song. And you start to pay attention to those because you're not going to the Riviera or to Niagara Falls or to the national parks. One blessing for me was that we were not racing around doing mindless, stupid errands that we usually do that make us feel so important and so efficient. And instead, maybe we wrote, maybe we sang, maybe we rested, maybe we talked to people by Zoom. I did a lot of recovery meetings. I got to church every Sunday. I got to talk with people that were lonely and not really getting to see anybody at all. So those were the blessings. But this book, I was writing the very end of it when COVID hit. And so what had propelled me to start writing it was just the things I mentioned that I mentioned in this first reading, which were climate change and the catastrophe of life in the modern era, and the endless and toxic data stream that just, I think, makes us very crazy some days. the craziness in in government, the hostility, let's say, the divisions, the anger, the anger of half the population at any given time. And let alone what I found when I was touring for my Hope book, what people were terrified or upset about at their own dining tables, you know, in their own families. Life is hard. I have a beautiful life. I have it better than most people. I have shelter. I have a beautiful husband. My son and grandson live in a barn on the property. I'm clean and sober 35 years. I don't have food shortage, anything like that. And still life is really hard and weird. So that's what the book is about, is how we get our joy, how we keep our joy. There are a couple of really good questions here. I'm just going to interrupt myself to ask if that's okay, Suzanne.
Sure. Do you want me to dive into those, or do you want to answer them?
I can ask. So the first one is, how old were you when you started writing seriously? And that's a really good question, because I was always kind of writing. I was a really good storyteller, and I was the person on the blacktop or at the tennis courts waiting around playing ping pong or swimming, waiting for our next match, who could tell the stories of what we had all witnessed collectively. It's just a gift. It's just like God-given. My dad was a writer and I was a reader from a very early age. And I just remember always writing. I remember my dad sending me a postcard once from the Pacific Northwest of a snowy owl. Isn't that funny? Because I leave the house with socks on that don't match, or with my fly down. I can never find my phone or the keys, but I can remember the postcard. I was 6 years old that my dad sent. And he said, look at this funny little fellow. Maybe you could write me a little story and tell me a little bit about him. And then I was just off and running. I started writing professionally. Let's see, I got a job. I was writing full-time in college. I went to college briefly on the East Coast. And I got to write a column every week for the school paper, and that was really exciting. It was great to have a deadline. Then I got hired at 20 at Billie Jean King's magazine, Women's Sports. That was on the peninsula in San Mateo. And so then I had deadlines, which were just fabulous. You know, I mean, that's the secret of writing, is meet your deadlines. And then my dad got sick when I was 23 with brain cancer, and he said, I'm going to write my version of this. Why don't you write yours? And then I wrote a book that ended up being my first novel, which is called Hard Laughter. And then there's another question I love. What was your favorite book that you wrote? And I have to say my favorite book is the one I wrote with my son, Sam, which is called Some Assembly Required, which is a follow-up to a book some of you may have read called Operating Instructions. That was about my son's first year, and Some Assembly Required is about my son's first son, who's now 11 and a half. And so we wrote it as a duet, which was really fun. So it's both of us, mostly me, but a lot of stuff by Sam that I really love. So do you want to take over, Suzanne?
Sure.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of questions here that we can get to. Annie, thank you so much. That was just so inspiring, and love hearing you talk about the writing process and how you came to write. Actually, I have it right here, Dusk Night Dawn. Yay. Along with all your other books. Oh yeah, Sarah's got it too. You know, I guess one of the questions that I've got, and then I'm going to get to Terry and Heather, Kathleen, we've got some really great ones. Today, so where do you find hope?
Well, you know, I've written 2 whole books really on hope. So I'll give you the, in a nutshell answer. I find it in each other. I find it in just to watch your slides and the recaps of the stuff that you're doing. I find it in people's goodness. I find it in community. 2 of my idols, Martin Luther King and Henry Nouwen, the French theologian, or Belgian, both talk about precious community and beloved community. I'm in recovery and I have a very precious recovery community. I live in a small town, Fairfax, and I mean, it breaks your heart what people are doing to save the earth and to take care of each other. Um, I find it in just paying attention to daily life and noticing how much beauty is really everywhere we look. There was a priest who helped AA get off the ground. He was not an alcoholic, but he was a friend of Bill Wilson's in 1935. And he said to Bill, sometimes I think that heaven is just a new pair of glasses. And I find a lot of hope when I put on my better glasses and I go around looking at all the things at work, all the people in my family who, against all odds, I'm still really, really close to, that I may have had fallings out with or stress, and that we adore each other. We do anything for each other. I find, I read like I did at 5 years old. I read anything all the time. And the beauty of books and the books I love, they're like getting spritz with a plant mister. They make me so happy, and happy as hope.
What are you reading these days, Anne? What are your favorite books?
I'm actually reading a great thriller, but I'm not positive I can remember the name. Uh, it's one of the best thrillers I've read this year. It's called, I think it's called The Last Thing He Told Me. I could actually look it up, or The Last Thing,
Yeah.
something like. Yeah, I think you could find it better. It's a big book, is right now on Amazon and at your independent bookstore, which I hope you are going to buy my books at. And I mean, the book that I foist on everybody who wants to get back to great novels is Poisonwood Bible. Everything by Barbara Kingsolver is pretty thrilling and gives me hope. Um, um, I read all day, every day. So I read during the day. I usually am reading nonfiction. I might be reading the New Yorker. I might be reading the New York Times or the Washington Post. I read a lot of poetry. People constantly send me, maybe, of course, Mary Oliver always is spiritually uplifting. And I get a lot of Christian poems because I'm a Sunday school teacher. I get a lot of spiritual poems. I have 2 rabbis who constantly send me stuff they love. So that's but at night, I get in bed about 10 and I read really long, because I don't go to bed early. And I usually am reading the very best thriller I can find.
Love it. That's great. From our friend Heather Lerner here in Rotary, she said, I hear you have lived in the floating homes of Sausalito. Can you talk about your inspiration and creativity and projects from that time? And full disclosure, Heather is viewing this meeting from her floating home.
Oh, cool. This thriller I just mentioned is narrated by somebody on a floating home. The Last Thing He Told Me, something like that. So I lived on a houseboat at Issaquah Dock. I lived in a mother-in-law unit in a beautiful, beautiful, fancy houseboat. The mother-in-law unit was about 10 by 10 feet with a hot plate and a loft. I was there for years. And then I was there for the first 2 years of my sobriety. So when I was still, I found it, the view, all I did was look out at the water, and the pelicans and the pilings and the cormorants and whoever else landed on a piling, and the weather that changed and shifted and swirled, and the incredible misty, mysterious fog that I love so much. And I just found it a very inspiring place to write. And I loved the community. And that was, I was still drinking when I moved there. And that was how I found my church, because there used to be the fantastic Marin City Flea Market right across the freeway, which was about a 10-minute walk. And so on most Sunday mornings, I'd walk over there, and I started to hear this beautiful music that was it was gospel, but it was also the music of the civil rights movement that I'd grown up on, Joan Baez and the Weavers and Pete Seeger. And so I just went in because I guess I'd run out of any more good ideas. So I'd go eat really greasy food at the flea market, and then I'd go to a little bit of the church in Marin City, and then I would go home to my houseboat locked, and I'd crawl in bed with the kitty and take a nap.
Love it. Wonderful. Um, and then Anne, question just about your writing routine. I think we have some writers here at Rotary. Do you have one? And can you forgive yourself when you don't follow it? How does all that work?
I write as a habit. I never write as inspiration. I don't really believe in inspiration. I think you could wait all day. And so I sit down at the same time every day and I write I'll write for a couple hours and I let myself write badly. I mean, every single thing I know about writing is in Bird by Bird. I take really short assignments. I have this 1-inch picture frame on my desk that's empty, and I look through it and I imagine what I can, one passage, one memory, one scene, one idea I have, and I let myself write it really badly. And so I write terrible, terrible first drafts, and then I write slightly better second drafts, and then I either give it to my husband Neil or to one of my other friends who reads stuff for me, and then they mark it up, make suggestions, and then I take most of them, some of them, and then I write a final draft.
Love it. Okay, that's good advice. Every day, just sit down and do it, right? Just sit down and do it. You're able to really see, having read several of your books, just the signs and synchronicity of life. And I don't think we all have the openness and sort of the ability to really pay attention to that and see it when it comes. You tell just a hysterical story about winning a ham at a grocery store and how pissed you were that it was taking forever to have the ham brought to you. Oh my God, I was like laughing out loud. And then you ended up meeting somebody in the parking lot who was homeless and loved ham. And you're like, oh, this is why I was meant to win the ham, is to give it away. How do we open our eyes and our hearts better so that we can see those signs and the synchronicities of life?
That's a really good question. I think it kind of goes to what the whole book is about, which is that you have the intention to. You have the intention to be awake while you're here and to savor life and notice life and my husband writes a lot about curiosity and that curiosity is where he finds hope. And so you set the intention, and then, like I was saying, you put on that good pair of glasses, but if you've decided to start being more awake and not keep hitting the snooze button, then you start paying attention to everything that floats or flies or scurries by or sits still for you to gaze at. And you hear a bird song and you stop and listen instead of racing on because you have so many important things you have to do today, right? So yeah, it's really about deciding to be here for your life instead of wasting so much of it, as we all do, on these stupid things that we just think are so important to get done, or that are that'll make people take us more seriously, or or impress people, or whatever. Instead, you just go, you know what? I'm going to sit on this rickety chair in the garden. I'm just going to listen for 10 minutes, see what I hear. Yeah. Give thanks.
Mindfulness and meditation and presence.
Mindfulness and gratitude. Mindfulness and gratitude. Mindfulness and gratitude.
Love it. And we've got another question from Terry, who is just asking, and it feels like the answer to this is all of your books, but could you highlight any of the sort of deep spiritual crises that you've encountered, and what you've learned from them?
The deep spiritual what?
Crises.
Oh, crises. Oh my God, yeah. Well, the first was that, first of all, I had a really scary childhood. I was really badly bullied because I looked so different. I was tiny, and then I skipped a grade, and so then I was even tinier with the next batch of classmates. The first real crisis was my dad got sick when I was 23 and died when I was 25, and that was the end of the world. It was like an anvil had dropped on us. And then I wrote Hard Laughter about it, so that's a good way to sort of learn about the lessons and the healing of that experience. Then, when I wrote Operating Instructions, my son's first year, my best friend died at the end of that book, and we've been friends since high school. And that whole book is about how you survive the death of somebody with whom you cannot live without. You show up every day. I pray. You ask for help. You take a lot of walks, take a lot of naps. But you just keep showing up for whoever it is that feels who may not be here for all that long. All the crises have all taught me the same thing, which was that you take it one day at a time, that you let yourself cry, you let any feelings you have are appropriate feelings, that you anyone you see who seems thirsty, you get them a glass of water, whether that thirsty person is just old, you. I'm thirsty. I've had a lot of crises, as everyone I know has. I'm 67, and I always tell newcomers in sobriety that we can promise them crises and tragedy. They will lose people. They will be scared. They might lose their jobs. They might lose their faith. They may lose their savings. But that if you're a sober person, you never have to drink again. And if you're not, you don't need to be. If you're just a regular old person, you never have to do it alone. You just pick up that 200-pound phone, and somebody will be on the other end who will be there for you.
Love that. Love that. Yeah, that phone's heavy sometimes. I agree. Did a couple questions too, just about your journey in recovery, and curious what led you to where did your alcoholism come from? Which I don't know if we can trace that specifically. And do you think it is a symptom, or and how did you get back your sobriety?
Well, I'd never gotten it until July 7th of 1986, but who knows why some of us are alcoholics. Most people aren't. Most people don't need to stop drinking. A lot of people would have an addiction to food or to overeating or dieting. There's just a life-threatening addiction to dieting and to getting your weight down, or just the self-loathing because you eat too much, or you're told you eat too much, or you weigh more than you want to, or that is healthy for you. So addiction is addiction, and I was just a kid who checked out wherever I could. I was the kid who wanted you to spin me on the tree swing forever. There was no point at which I was too dizzy to want to be spun again. I discovered, I loved sugar. When I was a child in the 50s, you could buy 5, some of you I know are a tiny bit older too, you could buy 5 Hershey bars for $0.25. So if you found $0.25 in the couch or under the boardwalk, you could buy 5 Hershey bars, and I did, and I ate them all. And it really changed how I felt. And then later, as I got older, I discovered that if I chugged a beer, it changed how I felt about myself. I suddenly had much, much better self-esteem, and I didn't worry so much about what other people thought of me. And I just felt more like myself. And it turned out that if I started with a beer or two, I wanted to keep going. So that's really how I discovered alcohol and discovered that I loved it. And then it turned out that if I started, I really couldn't stop. If I say I'm only going to drink 3 or 4 beers, I can't stick to it. I'll drink 3 or 4, and then maybe I'll probably think of a very good reason why wine with dinner also makes sense, and then I'm off and running. So that's what the alcoholism was like. And then somebody said, we're probably going to have to end in a second, but somebody said when I first got sober that by the end he was deteriorating faster than he could lower his standards, and that's really what happened for me. I was doing stuff, saying stuff in groups, at parties, in my family, where the next day, if I could remember, I was like, oh my God. Or if I called people and they reminded me, it's like, oh my God, I didn't really say that or do that, did I? And I had run out of any more good ideas to control my drinking. So I asked sober people for help.
Love it.
Well,
And
thank
thank you
you
so
very much,
much.
and I think,
Appreciate it so much. Thank you.
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you all. Thank you for your service.
Well, thank you for coming today and sharing with us your experiences. It's fascinating to hear someone who's gone through the travails that you have and that you've come out ahead on this thing. Listen, we normally give our visiting program speakers some sort of a gift, and our gift this year is not to you, but to our city. Our city forest is a nonprofit organization. We've agreed with them, and we've paid them some money to plant 46 shade trees here in East San Jose, plus 10 other trees donated by one of our local citizens, Carl Gordino, and 16 trees are 3 of our Rotary committees planted on Earth Day. So that's a total of 72 trees that we've planted here in East San Jose to combat heat islands, address the climate change, and improve neighborhoods and provide some wildlife habitat. And we do that as our way of saying thank you to you, knowing that you probably don't need any tchotchkes or anything like that. But we appreciate that you came out and spent your time and shared with us some of your life experiences. Next week, we've got a speaker by the name of Steve Borkenhagen. He's next year's president. He follows me on July 1st. And he'll be speaking about his personal life and Rotary theme. You know, he was born and raised in Santa Clara, and he's been an entrepreneur and business owner. A lot of us will remember the Olympia restaurants that he owned from 1977 to 2012. He's working with Carl Salas on, well, he did work with Carl Salas on energy management and is a certified leadership in energy and environmental design professional. So that's our guy, and he's working with John Ball, working on this confluence, urban confluence, to build a breeze of innovation. So be sure you tune in next week to listen to Steve Borkenhagen. I think that's the end of our particular presentation. Suzanne, do you have any interest in staying later, or do you?
I think we're wrapped up. I think we have wrapped. I just want to remind folks that Anne's book is at Hickleby's. Hickleby's was nice enough to put kind of a deal together. So please check out her work there. And we want to support our local bookstore. Thanks to Sarah, too, for helping with this.
Hey, thanks, I hope you get some bids on some of those leftover items in our auction. Thank you, everyone. As my favorite immigrant governor used to say, hasta la vista.
Hasta la vista.
Thanks, Greg. See you guys next week.